All right. Hello, folks. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar today on unleashing creativity. We were talking about this a good bit internally here on the SWUGO team, and I kept thinking about a talk that I had seen from Sir Ken Robinson. Go ahead and throw it in the chat if you've ever seen that Sir Ken Robinson TED Talk. But at this event, he asked everybody in the crowd to raise their hands if they considered themselves to be an artist. And nobody raised their hand. Granted, it was a group of insurance professionals that, we were at this event. So I don't know how many artists are doing, property insurance. Shout out to any property insurance artists out there. But then he asked everybody to think back when you were 5 years old and raise your hand if you would have called yourself an artist then. And yeah, just about everybody raised their hands, right? Talking about how creativity and, being an artist and thinking outside the box and making art, creating those experiences. At some point we always had that in us. And we always wanted to freely express that. And in the events industry, we have the chance to do that, right? We have the chance to create such incredible experiences for our attendees, for our team, for our brand, right? And so what we're chatting about today is ways that we can unleash that creativity, that 5-year-old artist in us, maybe a little bit more professional version of that 5-year-old artist in us for our events, to create memorable experiences for our attendees. And we have two absolutely incredible guests that I'm excited to share this digital stage with. Alexandria, who is the experience marketing lead at Pixels, and Tavar, who is a field and partner marketing over at Riskified. I am so happy that y'all have joined us today. Alexandria, do you mind introducing yourself for everyone?
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. So I'm Alexandra. As Patrick said, I'm leading experience marketing at Pixels, and I've been in event marketing for the past 9 years, always B2B, always tech space, different industries, different type of events. But if you know me or follow me, I believe you can clearly see that I'm a big advocate of events being small, intimate, being used for really achieving strong goals within marketing and for the revenue, and overall being a part of a wider marketing strategy, maybe account-based marketing or customer marketing, but really not just being a tool that is utilized, or event marketers being sort of an event agency, even if it is just in-house, solely executing and being operators. Now I really believe in it as being critical marketing function.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we were on this call, you were explaining all of the different parts of marketing that were under your purview. So I'm excited for us to chat about how, events can fit within that as well.
Absolutely.
And Tavar, do you mind introducing yourself for everyone?
Yeah, sure. Tavar James. I'm the global head of field and partner marketing here at Riskified. We're a B2B SaaS tech company. And I also am a true steward of events. My entire career has been in events. I started in hospitality and then worked my way through the ranks through multiple brands and tiers within hospitality, and ended up moving over to corporate events where I worked in financial services, and now I work in tech. So it's been a great ride. I have fallen in love with my career trajectory over the past few years, in that I take a look back and I realize I've touched so many different types of events, so many different types of clients, and then so many different types of experiences that I'm happy that I have platforms like this where I can share a little bit of knowledge that I have and also learn a few things. So happy to be here.
Patrick, we can't hear you.
Can you believe that in 2023?
There you go.
Yeah.
Almost 2024, Patrick, come on.
Almost 2024. My goodness gracious. It's just like a ritual at this point, having to stay on mute at some point. All right. Thanks for letting me know. So just so folks know, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a button that says Q&A and also chat. So if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts or anything that y'all have done that you think is pretty darn creative, go ahead and throw that in the chat. And we'll also try to get to Q&A as we go throughout this thing. But first question to pose to the two of you. What does the term creative really mean to you? So like when we pitched this webinar at y'all, what was the first thing that came to mind as like what creativity means to you? I'm going to send it over to you first, Alexandra.
Yeah, I think there are different definitions of it and different things that come to mind. One of them is a skill. Many people put it on their CV and they're like, I'm a creative person, or skills creativity on LinkedIn, for example. What it means to me, I believe it can be a skill, is the ability to continuously enhance, elevate, innovate, and change things and not fall into the path of the routine, and always see the possibility to twist something, to change something, but and also to get the ideas and the ability to transform these ideas for the context that you need, that you're working on. And it's truly a skill. It's not that everyone has it and has it for 100%, which is totally fine. Like the world needs very different personalities to make things work. But to me, from the skill perspective, that's what creativity or being creative actually is.
I love that. I love the term I was told was creativity is a muscle. So like you got to.
Yeah, you can definitely flex it. I agree. Mm-hmm. Yes.
For sure. Tafar, how about you? When we talked about creativity, what was the first thing that came to mind?
Yeah, I think creativity can sometimes scare people. I think the word can scare people because I think a lot of people think that in order to be creative, you have to like shapeshift the world and do something astronomically amazing. And I actually would prefer to replace the word creative with special. I think creativity is creating special moments that may be unique to a specific audience or unique to a specific person, but it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's brand new. So that's how I look at creativity. It's just about creating special moments across multiple people, one person, doesn't matter, but it's just about creating those special moments. And that does require a specific skill set. Not everyone has an eye or is in tune with what special means. While it can be very subjective, I do think it is a very specific skill set.
For sure. I love the idea of honing in on special. Not necessarily everything has to be creative, but special. So Tavar, one of the things that we got when we were looking through the Q&A that was on the forum, as people were registering, a lot of people were asking for examples of what are some things. I think they want to copy it, and I think that's cool. So Tavar, I'll send it over to you first. What is an example of something you've done that you describe as creative that maybe some folks in the audience can steal or use for their events?
Yeah, sure. This is one that I put on my LinkedIn recently, so I'll share this one briefly because a lot of people may have already seen it. But one of the most memorable experiences that me and my team have ever created was when I worked with Equitable Financial and we had our Leaders Forum in New Orleans. And we pretty much crafted this super special immersive experience of New Orleans. We had a second line band march us down the streets of New Orleans where the cops shut down the streets for us. We lit up the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in our colors and had fireworks coming out of the top of the Superdome and completely took over Champion Square. So that was a really creative and, again, special experience, right? Because a lot of people would never be able to experience that. A lot of people didn't even know what a second line was until we put them in one. So that was great. And then I think an idea that my team and I had, when this is more recent, which is why I want to share this one, is we had our annual Merchant Summit here at Riskified this year in Nashville. And the theme of the summit was Titans of e-commerce, where we are highlighting certain merchants as titans of the e-commerce industry. And so when you think of titans, you think of champions, you think of, best in class. And so we were going to have varsity jackets made for all of our attendees with their names on the back to sort of highlight them as the key focus of the summit, as our titans, as our champions. So that was another way of us being creative / making people feel special.
I love that. I feel like that swag item goes, farther than a t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Something I know I'd be wearing. Also looks like you got some New Orleans fans in the chat. So
yeah,
and that's something we would recommend coming to those events. Alexandra, how about you? What are some of the things that are creative that you've done recently?
I think we try to get creative every time. Almost every day, and it can be different things. starting from the workflows on HubSpot, and how can we manage this sort of complex registration flow without necessarily having the tools that would normally be used to do that. I think it also can be creativity, and you can be creative without something super big or huge. The fireworks, Tamar, when you mentioned, also brought up the memory, I think, of one of my favorite events of all the time. It was like back in 2017 when we were in the Alps and we had fires, especially for our group of like 14 people. And we had to make coordinated with the airport in Innsbruck to make sure no flights are going up, that we can actually shoot fireworks now above the clouds. Like, this was pretty special, 100%. But speaking of recently, one of the things, and definitely like, go ahead, steal that idea. LinkedIn needs more cool content. We launch events, our Flow event series. We have a bunch of them throughout the year. We started launching them with some cool video that everybody shares, our employees share, it goes up on our page. And we were brainstorming with the team and asked the question, okay, so what should we do to launch our Berlin event? And then Pamela, our content marketing manager, she was like, oh, I have an idea. It's Berlin. So Berlin is very known for its graffiti. So let's hire graffiti artists and they will paint Flow Berlin on somewhere on the wall in Berlin, and they will film it in a time lapse, and like it will all look cool. So we did check the freelancers. Turned out it was beyond our budget, way beyond. You will be surprised how much actually you can earn by being a graffiti artist, apparently. But that didn't stop us and didn't stop our creativity, because we were like, yes, we love this idea. It's so cool. Let's do it. So let's buy some paint and masks and find the wall in Copenhagen, because I'm based in Prague. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with the team on that day. But they found the wall in Copenhagen that you could paint legally. Everything was allowed. Turns out it's very hard to paint graffiti, to spray paint things. But there was a kid on the block who taught them the secrets. And that video turned out absolutely amazing. It's probably my favorite launch video of all that we've done. And the fact that it was done by hands of our own people who were actually then at this event, that made it even more special. And we would say, like, we actually wrote it in the post that, our own Pamela and Andre and Christina, they ventured out on the streets of Copenhagen and, brought to you Flow Berlin a little bit closer. This was, for me, I don't remember the budget, but it was like under 50 euro for spray paint and masks and stuff. So, but it made a splash.
Yeah. That sounds like very quintessential guerrilla marketing, right? Of going back to the OG of tagging, tagging the street. That's so cool. I love how you're integrating the city in that promotion too, of like looking to how, like, what is the culture of Berlin that we want to be able to celebrate at this event?
It started with us doing a video of like a bike tour around Copenhagen for the event that we've done before. And one of my colleagues back then, Christina, she was riding on a bike through all the cool places, and Pamela was filming her, and then we put it all together, and it was just also amazing. So
totally.
As you can see, I'm just cheering on the sides for all this. Like, my colleagues are actually doing it. I'm like stuck as a remote employee, here in Prague. It's very hard to film and do stuff on my own.
I was just thinking if it's part of the SWUGO event, they're like, all right, you have to, spray paint a wall. It's like, hope you like this star that I can make or something like that, Awesome. So as we're thinking about, coming up with these creative ideas, what are some of like the brainstorming techniques, or how do you get to the point? How do you create systems and cultures and stuff like that around coming up with these great ideas? Alexandra, I'll send this one to you.
Yeah. So in general, I am a big fan of Agile and Agile methodology and Scrum techniques and Scrum practices. So for me, having plannings, having retrospectives that really open up a lot of interesting points and different perspectives, which is, I think, extremely important, because you can't be creative you can be creative just with your own perspective. That's what I think fashion designers are in many ways, especially now I believe it's changing. There is more of influence from consumers and other perspectives. But back then, that's my vision. That's how it's going to be. And this is creative because I'm cool. Now, and especially when you create events for people, you need to listen to different perspectives. And to me, these retrospectives are really helpful. And other parts are just brainstorming sessions and getting these brainstorming sessions on a regular basis. This is one of the things that I've done at one of my previous companies where with the team, we would do weekly brainstorming sessions for 1 hour, and someone had to bring the idea of what we need to discuss. It could be the next event that we have coming up and we need to come up with an activation. It could be something that like a challenge that we need to resolve. And if we had nothing on the really burning top of mind, then I always had some things that we could really brainstorm creatively about something that happened in the past, maybe a difficult situation or something else that we potentially wanted to try and do. And we would just flex that creative muscle, flex the brainstorming muscle. I think the best things for me was one of our most creative activations for the trade show came out of those trade show, brainstorming sessions. And the other was that one of the my team members said a few months in, I was very skeptical about these sessions, but a few months in, I actually started to really look forward to them every week, and they are really helpful for me to see things differently. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do, and that proved really the point, because that was an experiment for me. I didn't know, will it work for me as a manager? It was an experiment, but it definitely worked.
That's awesome. I love the idea of it being a routine thing. That you do it every week to brainstorm this. I feel like it's a great way of taking a step back, right? Instead of, especially in the events world, we're constantly handling the fires,
yes,
right? This is a great opportunity to step back and think a little bit bigger. What about you, Tavar? What are some of the ways that you and your team, brainstorm some new ideas?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Alexandra said. Like having regular meetings to collectively talk about ideas and so forth is very important. But I'm also a big advocate of bringing everyone to the table from the very beginning. And I think that sometimes we missed out on an opportunity to have more ideas and more influence because we tend to ideate in small pockets. And so I encourage people to always, share your ideas in the most open format as possible. So my team and I, we have a team Slack. Even though we're a global team, everyone across the globe who's on my team is part of this team Slack. And when we have ideas or when we watch an article, read an article and it seems interesting, we all drop that information in the Slack. But then when it comes to how we work with our stakeholders, whether it be for APAC, EMEA, or AMER, we always make sure that we include the full team on any communications or anything or any launches. Reason being is because it's nice to observe what other regions are doing. Because while we may not be able to copy and paste that same experience or that same idea for a specific region, it will probably introduce some frame of mind or some thought that can then later lean into a new creative idea. When you look at some of the creative geniuses of the world, like one of my favorite is Oliver, who's the creative director for Balmain, right? He'll tell you that he always ideates in groups. He's always sharing his ideas in groups. Like, yeah, he may be home over a cigarette sketching on a pad, but when it's time to actually speak about these things or take it to the next level, he's always doing it in groups. So I encourage people to bring the right people to the table from the very beginning, bring as many creative minds to the table from the very beginning. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your idea is not good enough. It just means that you have more opportunity to give your idea more legs. And the more perspective and the more different angles that you have people looking at your ideas, the better it can be. It can only be better that way. I don't think that creativity or creating special experiences is really victim to too many cooks in the kitchen. I think tactically and operationally, yes, right? You don't want to have too many chiefs. But I think when you're ideating and you're wanting to just, come up with the best ideas, the more people you bring to the table, the better.
Yeah, no, I really like what you're saying, because I think there's so many benefits of that, having different perspectives, and what you mentioned, especially people from different regions and different cultural backgrounds. So one thing is that is extremely important, right, is making sure that your idea and the way you want to do it, it's going to pass. I used to call it a Twitter test, but now it's probably X test. I don't know.
I mean,
like you don't want to come across tone deaf just because you may not have, like, you're maybe creating a global event, but you may not have necessarily that global experience or cultural backgrounds. You really want to make sure that you are doing the right thing. Like just running it by different people.
If you look at the recent situation that happened with Zara, right, which has happened with many different retailers, right, I'm pretty sure that if they had more variation across mindsets in the room, that they probably would have, had someone or a few people say, wait a minute, guys, I don't know if this is the right direction to go into. So I encourage people to broaden broaden the table and make sure you have enough seats for everybody that can potentially contribute something to the idea.
Yeah,
for sure.
And also people, I just love this topic so much. I think sometimes, and I know this for myself, I often find that now I throw a lot to the team, but then they come up with a better idea because I think their mind is not stuck every day, all the time around this. And they have much fresher perspective. And that's why going to an event, for example, is so helpful. And maybe have like, oh, I had such a light bulb moment, not because they learned something new, but because their brain finally got a reset. Yeah. And so I feel like people who are doing something different on a day-to-day, they come into this meeting and they can have a much newer and more exciting idea and more exciting perspective on what you've been trying to solve or come up with.
Yep.
For sure. I can tell when I go to events, it's mostly like I'll take notes on what's going on with the session, what they have to say. And then I'm always like, Pop-Tarts are a great idea for, I was like, I actually really enjoyed, what I had there. I'm into taking a lot more notes about like the experience involved there. And then like have another 20 or 30 notes about what if we did blah, 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 blah instead. So events are such a great opportunity for that to get outside of your head and to get out of your routine. So both of you are managers, right? And so working with people, what advice would you give to managers to, give your direct reports freedom to be creative? Tavar.
That's it right there, man. The freedom to be creative, the freedom to create special moments. You cannot micromanage creativity. You have to let creative people flex their wings, and you have to give them the space and the opportunity to fail. Creative people, we win and we lose. But what makes creative people so special is that winning and losing is all winning to them, right? Because every loss is an opportunity for them to now know how they can be better, how can they be stronger. And so I think, especially in corporate event planning, a lot of times we get so caught up in the junk of corporate America or corporate planning or the corporate world that we think everything needs to be extremely like tight and succinct. And everything needs to just kind of like be perfect black and white. And by doing that, we sometimes stunt people's growth. We sometimes stunt people's way of thinking or their creative juices. I remember when I was at Equitable and I was getting promoted to senior director, and I was moving from reporting to the chairman's office to reporting to the chief marketing officer. And chief marketing officer asked my chairman, what is one thing I need to know about Tavar, leading Tavar? And my chairman told her, you cannot clip his wings. You have to let him fly. And it's true. And I think that's true for all creative people. Like if you want them to be their best, if you want them to show up every day at their fullest potential, you have to give them the space to test, try, fail, win.
Totally. I can tell. I love what you said there about like winning and losing, or succeeding or failing are both wins, right?
Yep.
Like as creatives, it's the shipping, it's the getting it out into the world that is the success. Yeah. As long as you learn from those failures,
it's getting it out to your like what you just said. Yeah, it's getting it out. It's like what you said. It's like, that's a big part of us as creative people. It's like we have to get it out, whether it's right or wrong. We just have to get it out. And so that's a big part of it.
Totally. Alexandra, what are your thoughts on managing creatives?
Yeah. I think it's about, first of all, as a manager, right? And if you're working with creatives, and now I'm also thinking not only like, let's say, event marketers who will be putting on an event experience, but also we do work a lot with designers and photographers and videographers. And these are creative people, like as they are, right? I find that it is very important to have conversation and listen to the other side. There will be, I know I have a lot of situations, and like every time, especially with design, there will always be a conversation about the artistic vision versus practicality of the designs. And it's a process. And sometimes really you have to, sometimes you will have to say no to things. It is always very important for me to have a reasonable explanation and arguments as to why is it the perception of how people will see this design, is that what we are trying to achieve here, but also understanding, and that goes just for all managers, understanding when to kind of let it go, when it's not anymore the risk of something really failing. Because to be fair, maybe I'll slightly disagree here as you, Tavar. Yes, we need to give this space for people to fail, but we can't, like the cost of a mistake when you're doing one event a year, for example, and this is your flagship event, and this is for your top customers and your business depends on it. Honestly, you can really fail. You can't miserably fail and just embarrass yourself and the company, even though that was a learning process. Is that what you're going to tell to your manager? Like, is it CMO or CEO, or like when you will be interviewing for your next position as to why you left your previous role? No. So it is your responsibility to evaluate what the risks are of letting this idea fly. Is it a critical element of the event, of like its execution, or is it something that, yeah, sure, let's try it, let's see how it goes, what we can learn from it? So if it is a cool idea, you believe in it as well, and it is a critical part of it, then you really need to make sure to guide like people who work on your team, who are owning that idea, that they think through all the risks, that it's not just creative, but it's actually also logical, and it just can be real, right? Sometimes some ideas are not, and sometimes they're creative for the sake of being creative. So I think that is a big role of manager when you're working with creatives. You need to have the conversation, you need to evaluate the risks, and you also need to learn how to give feedback, because giving feedback to creative people is very hard. There is a lot of subjectivity. That's why to me, it's like you need to find arguments, even if it's just your opinion, because you form your opinion with experience. I understand why it's not going to work, but I can't say just because of that, I need to find these arguments why I think that it's not going to work. Sometimes, can I not find sometimes? Yeah.
And I think that's exactly why people like myself and Alexandra are in the positions that we're in, right? Like, for example, for me, where I'm at in my career, I'm at a point now where I don't necessarily need to be the creative voice at the table. My job is to take all of that creativity and make sure that it aligns with the business, it aligns with the goals of the event, to make sure that it tells the story in the way that we want it to be told. So to Alexandra's point, like, yes, my job is to be the guardrails. But when you talk about like actionable things that you can do for your team, I definitely like to give them the space to fail, but they're not failing to my C-suite. They're not failing when we get to, they're not failing at execution. They're failing maybe at an idea they give me where I say, you're missing the mark. That's what I mean by giving people the space to fail, letting them know that it's okay to miss that mark. It's okay to come to me with ideas that may not be that great. And then it's my job to make sure that I'm filtering that before it gets to the next step. That's important.
That's a great point. Less of giving them the world to fail in, and if you're going to give them the space, like outlining the space, creating that specific space that they can fail in.
Yep.
I remember in previous gig, I wanted to do this big thing at an event, and it was a little funky, and my boss said, what if instead you did that at a round table, and then let's see how it goes. And so we created that space, and it failed. Like, it very much failed. It was, it was like, what if we introduced it was like doing a breakfast in the afternoon kind of a deal. I was like, I used to love golf, whatever. But yeah, it was great about like creating like that specific space. So have a question here, which is from Hamilton. How do you use your small micro events and field marketing events to test special moments? Oh, Hamilton, we're on the same page here. So you can implement those strategies in flagship events. Alexandria, do you have anything for that one?
Yeah, for sure. It's not only about testing, I guess, some of the ideas for sure. To me, it's always about experimenting. And to me, a good event is where at least 20% of the program are an experiment and 80% are this like trusted thing that we know it's going to work. So we know that 80% are definitely a success. Let's try this 20, see how it goes, evaluate the feedback afterwards, take the best out of it to the next one, then experiment again. And for the smaller ones, for sure, mainly, I would say it's sometimes about the messaging, sometimes about the promotion, and also a lot about kind of how to put it in the right way, about navigating like conversations and curating that networking, finding the techniques that work really well and that then we can replicate at a bigger event. So you can try it in a smaller group that is always more manageable, where like if you have 30 people and you try some technique that you want to try for like to facilitate networking and you see that it's failing miserably, nobody's either understanding or something else, you can just, really scratch it and go to the regular, let's just talk, right? Make it easy, but then you learn from it. So in that sense, 100%. That's very useful if you have that opportunity. And also testing the format and then rolling it out at a bigger event.
Totally. I love using these field marketing events as like testing grounds for your own work there. I have a question here, which is from Flecky. How do you deal with in terms of sharing ideas, how do you deal with not looking like you are dismissing people's ideas when you have team meetings like these?
Yeah, I think that you have to, first and foremost, give people the space to share their ideas, right? And if the idea is not a good idea, I instead of outright saying that it's not a good idea or saying that this is not going to work, I spit back a challenge of how they can maybe change that idea, right? So if you come to me and you say, I think we should paint that wall yellow, and I know that's just not going to work because our brand colors are orange and green or whatever the case may be, right? And you say you want to paint that wall yellow. Well, I'm not going to say, no, that's a bad idea. Instead, I'll probably say, I think yellow might be a little aggressive. Is there another tone in that family that we could consider, right? Or, why are you choosing yellow? And if they say, I think we want to choose yellow because it's bright and it's alive and it's fun, then I would spit back, okay, well, you know what? Actually, blue is a lot of fun too. How about we find a way to I'd make it more of like your idea is not bad, right? Because no idea is bad if we really think about it. All ideas have some tone of good to them or something is there that we can play with. So I try not to shoot people down and I try to take what they're trying to say from a bigger picture and find a way for them to kind of refocus their attention a little bit. So that's usually my approach.
Totally. I love that, of asking the why behind the gesture.
Yeah. You always ask why 5 times and you'll get to the root of it, and then you can reroute the conversation or the decision.
And I also like the variation of what would you like or what are you trying to achieve with this, just not to ask why question, because sometimes if you feel like it might come across a little bit aggressive, let's say if it's a new team or you don't have a good rapport or something like that, that's on that note, I think one of my favorite leadership books is Coaching Habit, and I think they're great questions to find out what really people are thinking and to like guide them in a way, super helpful. Or if you are not in the mood, I remembered an example from my previous manager at a different company, and she would say, that's a very interesting idea. Let's see how we can make it happen in the future. 2 months in, everybody's like, okay, that means you don't like it and never going to happen. So that's another way. Just kidding.
To whoever asks that question, I'd be very careful with shooting down people's ideas or letting them know that something is about, like, I'd be careful going in that direction, because as you can see by what Alexandra just said, people don't forget that. They don't forget when they've been told their ideas are not good. Like, people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So it's important to make people always feel like, good or bad idea, you have a seat at the table and your opinion is valued. So I just try to redirect their idea to something that probably is better. You're redirecting to their greater potential, right? You know this person, you know that this might just be a one-off where they're sending you a bad idea, but you know they have the potential to do something bigger or have a better idea. So just redirect that idea and try to tap into their better potential.
Totally. I love that, because you can't do everything, right? You can't do every idea that's thrown their way. One of the things the feedback I've been given is like how much body language plays into it. You know, like I have a resting annoyed face whenever I'm on Zoom calls, apparently. So if so, you know, as folks are giving ideas, making sure that, you know, you're actively involved there, physically as well. Tavar, you're getting a lot of praise in the chat here. Getting folks says, "How about you be my manager, Tavar?" So. If Tavar's hiring, we can drop that. All right. So, what are some of the pitfalls you see as we're thinking about, you know, these like brainstorming sessions and like the getting creative? Alexandra, what are some of the things that, you know, you think people should watch out for or avoid?
Yeah, I guess getting overly creative or getting creative for the sake of creativity. And I know that sometimes I try to, okay, what can we do? What can we do for our next event that will be different? And what if we ask to do this, people, and then this, and this is how it's going to be used. And then like try to even explain it to your colleague or even to yourself. And then if you understand that it sounds kind of complicated, then it's going to be extremely complicated for people to follow. And even though in the end, it would have been like, oh, an extremely creative experience, aha moments all around and so on. Like people are just going to be really tired, like not understanding what you want from them. And as soon as people are confused, that's over. As Tavar was saying, it's about creating a special moment, a very special, feeling frustrated or stupid because you can't understand what people want from you.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if people can't find the entrance to the venue, like they're already extremely annoyed, right? They arrive to the event super annoyed, so you don't want to create this sort of thing. So always making sure that whatever you create, it's that nice touch. It's really you add something special and interesting where people will smile or be like, oh, that's such a smart idea, but not something will be like, so what do I have to do once again? Or something like this. Yeah,
I would say that, like, I agree. You know, we don't overcomplicate it. Like, the little things still matter. And again, creativity does not mean trying to change the world. It really doesn't. If you look at, like, I'm trying to think of a more like recent pop culture type reference that people can familiarize themselves with. But if you look at like the Renaissance tour by Beyonce, you know, it's being, you know, praised to the highest regard, which it deserves every bit of it. But if you look at that concert, none of it is brand new. Nothing that she did was brand new. It's all just a different twist or a different approach to something that made it special for that audience, which everyone knows that the target audience for that album and that tour was the LGBTQ plus community. So she took a lot of things that she's learned over the years and she fine-tuned it to make it special for that audience. And that is creative. That's creativity. It's not new, but it's creative in the sense that she made it special for a specific audience. You know, when you think of creative people, when their juices start flowing, it's not in the midst of madness. It's not in the midst of chaos. Our juices start flowing in the midst of where we're relaxing, or when we're visiting a new country and walking down the sidewalk. We're inspired when we're at a dinner table around a bunch of different colleagues sharing ideas. We're inspired when we're in moments of peace and calm. And so you have to remember that when you're thinking of something creatively, it's not to overcomplicate it. To Alexandra's point, like if someone can't get to the damn entrance of the conference because you wanted to take them down a maze, then you've lost them. You've lost that. You're already taking them down a path of something that's annoying and not special. So I say, don't overcomplicate it. Your job is not to change the world in one experience. Focus on the small things. Remember the small things, because a lot of small special moments will create one big experience, and that's what you're looking for.
I absolutely love that point. We had Kelly had made a great point in the chat, which is so true, Alexandria. Creativity isn't tied. If creativity is not tied to the core purpose, then the event is in the way. So I love that concept. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about like trying to get into an event where like the entrance is a maze, and like thinking that some convention centers, that's kind of been the case,
on its own, right?
Yeah,
including a line to Starbucks.
Exactly.
Or even the airport. Like you think about the airport, like if you have to walk a long way to your gate, you're already like, okay, this is supposed to be a fun vacation. I'm already annoyed, right? Like it's just like, that's a prime example, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it still can be a maze, just thinking about it. It can actually be a very cool idea as long as it's short, as long as there is no other way to get lost. You can't really spend there longer than, 1 minute or 1.5 minutes or something. And that it is fun. It's like, don't take it to extremes, right? You can always tune it down or make it simpler, still keeping the core idea.
Exactly. Keeping to the core idea of the event, which is Kelly's point here. So I'm trying to think, what are some of the brands? I got a question in here, which is, what are some of the brands you take ideas from? So I know that there's a few that I follow on, Instagram and LinkedIn, just to like see what they're up to, But what are some of the brands that y'all look to for event inspo and all that stuff?
Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go tomorrow. Okay.
No, I was going to say, I can't necessarily say a specific brand, but I definitely am still like always wowed by lifestyle brands or any of those B2C brands. Like I just think that they still have nailed experiences top to bottom. When you think of like Porsche, when you think of like, the Super Bowl, when you think of just, there's just a lot of lifestyle brands out there, like even Fashion Week. If you look at some of the activations that are done for Fashion Week, it's like, wow, like who thought of that? So I tend to lean on brands that are still very in tune with the human being and not so in tune with the sales cycle. And so I think that's a big part of event marketing, where sometimes corporate event marketing, especially B2B, we get lost in like the sales cycle. Like we're planning an event that will drive the sales cycle, but we forget, like at the end of the day, the person that's going to sign that contract or even request a proposal is a human being. So I'm always in love with brands that are continuously in tune with the human being and the human experience.
For sure. You can definitely find that closer in these direct-to-consumer or B2C brands, versus B2B. What about you, Alexandra? Are there any brands that you look to, or any themes and things like that you look for?
Yeah, I think we seem to be quite aligned here with Tavar. I think we need to watch Fashion Weeks maybe together and exchange our impression of that. I absolutely love following like different activations and shows, and mentioning Belmont and Olivier and what they produce. I think it's just stunning. I still want to turn maybe one day, make Flow Festival like Belmont Festival. What they do, I think, is absolutely amazing. Also, just thinking about, okay, it is a fashion brand, and it's not like they are producing rock or pop clothes. No, not at all, right? Their style is very contemporary, and like it's a kind of quite artistic and classic, actually, but like what they do, how they present it is incredible. And all of the other brands as well. I always love brand activations at festivals like Coachella style. I mean, if you want a little bit more of a craziness, right? Check out the Burning Man activations or the different setups that people come up with, costumes, and this is pretty insane things there. But also just the brands and B2C brands. I love what Gymshark is doing. I think it's one of the brands I always follow. And just also not just the experience that they create, but how they do the whole campaign around it on social, how they use their let's say the faces of their brand, was their CEO and like all the people that are involved. I think they are doing an amazing job and a lot to learn for B2B brands. Definitely had a lot of inspiration from them around different videos and activations and so on.
Totally.
I will say that if there's one company, like if there is a B2B company that I have to think of, where I'm like, okay, yes, when I go to a trade show, I look for their booth. Salesforce is consistent. Mm-hmm. They're always consistent with an amazing booth and with, an amazing experience. And you can tell they put a lot of money into it, which obviously they have the budget for it. But I will say that there has not been a time where I've seen a Salesforce booth or activation where I've been underwhelmed. So I would say that's a good company that I think, does a good job. But again, we're talking about probably endless resources versus some of us.
Yeah. But I also think, like, to your point of learning also from companies that are within your realm, you can learn both great things and creative things, but also things you want to make sure you don't want to do. Whenever you go to an event that is not, that's not the event that I'm organizing or participating, because then I'm always too busy and just attending. The amount of notes I make just about the experience, good and bad, like something, this was amazing, like, let's replicate this. Oh my God, let's not do that. Let's make sure we don't do that, because sometimes you also see things differently when you are attending, or sometimes you just walk on the street and see an ad, or in a shop, I see a really nice installation and the use of light, make a photo, make a note of it. Like, okay, this is something that is easy to do, but that really creates a special moment.
And to that point, I think if there are any other leaders on the call that are listening, one of the ways that you can keep your team inspired is being a conduit to the rest of the industry for them, right? So host a lunch and learn where your team comes on a call and they all eat lunch together, but you have someone from the industry come in and speak about latest trends, or speak about an event they did where they did something really cool, and then give your team the space to go out there and go to industry events, both domestically and internationally. Fight with your leadership team on budget for your team to have T&E, to go to at least one conference a year where they can be inspired. Those things are very important for creative people. We like to be out there. We like to be among the craziness, so that way we can learn and be inspired. So I think as a leader, you have to be an advocate for that. You have to fight for that for your team, and you have to be a conduit between your team and the rest of the industry. Totally.
I was thinking about some of the best leaders I've worked with. They were constantly sending me things, that were like, hey, you got to check this out, or, like constantly posting that kind of stuff, encouraging me to get out. Always keeping that open eye for things. Yeah. So this question came in a good bit, actually, which was, and I'll read example one from Claire. Looking for low-cost ideas in different markets that were successful. Actual examples would be much appreciated. So we mentioned Salesforce. It'd be very cool to have that, Trailblazer budget. But, some of us are working on a Trail Mix budget. So do y'all have any, examples of some really low-cost things that y'all have done to make your events special? Or Tavar, yeah.
I have a few, but Alexandra, I don't know if you want to go first.
No, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people see different brands and they get intimidated. Like they'll see BMW racetrack or Porsche Experience Center, and they think, these must be a lot of money. They're actually not. To rent out these spaces. We just did a Risky Talks in LA at the Porsche Experience Center, and it was not that much money. And so we were able to host some food and beverage in their little conference center. We had a little session with a panel, and then they were able to get into some Porsches and ride them at top speeds around the track. And that was a memorable experience for our attendees, both, existing customers and prospects. So I think that you don't be afraid of different experiences that you think may cost a lot of money, because you'd be surprised when they don't cost as much as you think they would. Little things like that go a long way. Or, finding a restaurant that is super unique. We did a dinner here in New York at the Polo Ralph Lauren restaurant. And again, the average person would think, oh my God, that's probably so expensive. It's not. It's just a name on a building that, that they use to attract people, but their prices are not that different than the next restaurant next door. So, do your research and take chances and take risks on opportunities that you think may not be within your budget.
Totally. I love that idea. I'm always surprised how much some venues cost and how like some are like shockingly affordable, based off of like,
and some are shockingly expensive.
yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That happens. So,
Yeah, electricity at the convention center, for example. So
Wi-Fi, all that
yeah.
stuff.
I guess I don't know if the question was more about the trade shows or your own events, but just thinking also about some of the things that we've done in the past. The most successful ones for the trade shows or some place where you need to present your brand were the things where we could find a fun connection and some sort of gamification connection with what our company product does. Yeah, it was in tech space, so it was an online tool, so it's kind of hard to display it in like real life. But people love that physical contact, right? If you can touch something, if you push the button, like something, people do love it. One example I think stands out how like one of the tools, maybe someone knows, I worked at SEMrush, so it's a digital marketing suite. There were different tools. One of them was for advertising, like on Google and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. But we turned that tool, represented it with a poker table, where you could set okay, how much do you think the keyword actually costs? And because the tool showed the actual cost on Google, how much you need to bid on it and all of these details. And that was such a fun experience because people would get the chips and we branded the chips. That was super cheap. They actually, it's a plastic piece, right? So, but it was branded. So people could play. They could win a main prize. I already don't recall what it even was. But they also could take these chips with them. And I know that for some, they stayed for such a long time, like on their desk, this little memorabilia. And that was really fun way to represent something. And like poker table, this chips, as it didn't cost us almost nothing, right? And cards with keywords that we printed. Super easy. But this was really memorable and something that really stood out because it was creative 100% and it was fun and people could touch it and they could get something to take away.
I love the poker chip idea. That's really fun. We're talking a lot about gamification at your events, right? Oftentimes it lives as like a number on your phone, but actually having like something tangible that you can, feel. That's awesome. The kind of off that, a question from Samantha here, which is what swag items and handouts, information resources do audiences seem to love the most, get the most use of? Outside of poker chips, was there anyone that like really stood out to you?
Well, I may share a not the most popular opinion, but since I joined Pixels, I joined it after pandemics, coming back to in-person events. And one of the main things I wanted to do was to stop swag production and giveaways and stop being left at the venue once the event is over and there is so much swag and I have no idea what to do with it. To ship it, it costs more than it actually costs to produce it, take it in my own suitcase, or what do I do with it? And then I see it in trash cans and it was terrible, honestly. So we stopped doing it. No one has ever complained. No one has ever mentioned that on a feedback survey that I miss a water bottle or a notebook. We just doubled down on creating that memorable experience and different, like making people feel special for that day. And I believe that's, to me, that is more important. Like gifting memories and emotions is more important than gifting something like this.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I agree with Alexandra. I think it's, the industry is definitely going in a direction where we want to be more green. I will say if there is anything that has always been successful for us and always, leaves us with empty bowls or empty boxes is chapstick. For some reason, people love good quality chapstick with our brand on it. Don't know why, but they do. But I will say that, instead of giving a bunch of giveaways, consider consider changing your thought to be, how do I give away one big item through a raffle or something of those like, so, like lately we've been doing like one more expensive item, but something that people really care about, something that people will never leave behind, like an AirPods or Beats by Dre or something along those lines. So we're taking that same budget that we would spend on a bunch of little things, and we're putting that budget towards one big item or maybe two, through a raffle or something. I remember at Equitable, we went to we were sponsoring a women's conference, and we knew that it was all women, and we knew that one of the hot items among that audience was a Telfar bag. So that was our raffle item. Our raffle item was the Telfar bag, and instead of doing giveaways, everyone had to enter this raffle for a Telfar bag. And then we had like a smoothie station at our booth because the theme was health and wellness, and so we did a smoothie booth with this Telfar bag giveaway. So I agree with Alexandra, like if you can minimize waste, definitely go that route. We have been doing that by having just one big raffle item or one big more expensive item. And then we have like some sort of food and beverage, like a juice or smoothie station or coffee station, something that really can't go to waste.
Yeah, we actually now think, oh, sorry, Patrick, I jump in here. Just thinking about one big item, that's one thing we do give away at our events now. At least we did this year. We're going to change that for the next year. But for social media posting, we ask people to post on social during the day, their impressions of the day, and then we collect all the links, and then through randomizer, pick one post that wins. And the prize is a Lego set. And some nice Lego set, like we've done in New York Skyline, Adidas Originals shoe. Recently was a Harry Potter set because we were in London. We also did like some Harry Potter themed game the night before. And also Lego is from Denmark, and that's where Pixels was founded. So there is a connection on that front as well. And it's been quite successful, but it is a real item. Like it doesn't have a brand on it, but people will take it. And for people, especially who have kids, for example, like it's a great gift that they will bring back home and give to their child, and they don't have to run around the airport trying to buy a gift for their kid, because they've been away for the whole week. So yeah, in that sense, it was quite successful. Yeah.
Totally.
I like that.
Yeah. Point here in the comment, which said, but doesn't swag depend on the type of attendee we have? Which is for sure. I think you definitely have to, like I said, you have to know who your audience is, right? You're not going to have like you're not going to have a signed basketball at a women's conference, because most women probably are not going to want a signed basketball. A lot of women play basketball, don't get me wrong, but you have to know your audience. And so I think, having the right swag or having the right gift or giveaway or whatever for the right audience is important. Because people have to be interested in it. So in order to get them interested in it, you have to know your audience. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Also love it being an extension of what's going on at the event, as like if you're doing, for example, like the health and wellness, right, of giving away smoothies versus, at a health and wellness, congrats, you get a pen and a t-shirt again,
Yeah. Also like, don't forget the families. I think that's a great point that Alexandra brought up, is like sometimes we're always wanting to do swag for the people that are there or gifting for the people that are there. But a lot of times people love to be able to have something to bring home to their kids or their husband or their wife or their significant other. So, don't forget the families as well.
Totally.
It's a great way to pull at their heartstrings.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I had such awesome things to share with our crowd here, and thank you to everybody in the chat for asking questions and sharing your ideas in there. Tavar, where can people find you?
LinkedIn, Tavar James is the easiest way to find me. I'm always posting 4 things on a Friday, or I'm sharing some sort of like industry insights, or even sometimes I tend to want us event pros to take a moment to breathe and relax. I think that we are one of the most demanding careers ever. And so I tend to use my page to not only share insights and all that stuff, but I tend to use my page to remind people to just take a moment to breathe and reflect. So Tavar James on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I love that. I could use some time for reflection at the end of the year. That sounds good. How about you, Alexandra?
Yeah, same LinkedIn, Alexandra Panuhina on LinkedIn. Connect with me. Please let me know if you have any questions. I love talking about experiences. Anything I can share, I will share. Let's book time to connect. And I will be taking time off at the end of the year. But before that, I'll definitely post some more stuff on LinkedIn. You can see a lot of Flow promotion, which is our event. It's been pretty insane, never-ending cycle for the past year and a half. But there are a lot of things that we learned along the way. So I'm going to make a few posts more on LinkedIn before the end of the year.
Awesome. Can't wait to see that. And if you want to learn more about Swoogo, you can go to swoogo.events. You can also see past webinars on our resources page. And thank you so much for coming. We'll send out the recording in a few days' time. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.